Hi everyone, my name is Huihan. I am currently based in Paris. I just moved here after 20 years in Beijing, and I run a company called My China Roots. So maybe a little bit about myself as an introduction. I was born and raised in Holland, in the Netherlands, in Europe, and my parents came from Indonesia. And I always grew up loving stories. So I would always ask my grandfather to tell me about his life growing up in Indonesia, same with my parents. And at some point, I started wondering, why are all the stories that you tell us about Indonesia, well, at the same time, you keep referring to us as a Chinese family? And because we didn't speak any Chinese, nobody knew anybody in China. All the links with Asia were through Indonesia. So this contradiction fascinated me. Like, we call ourselves Chinese, but I couldn't really see anything Chinese about us. And that's how the curiosity really started. And this was probably I was 10 or so. And through my teenage years, I always thought, oh, I really want to go to China. But then on the other hand, going to Chinatown in Amsterdam, going to a restaurant, staff would speak Chinese to me. I would feel embarrassed because I couldn't speak anything back. And I was thinking, well, if I go to China ever, it'll be that times 100 or 1,000 because I'll be surrounded by Chinese people, and they'll all basically think that I'm well, not adequate for speaking, not being able to speak Chinese. So basically, I postponed my trip, and in my early 20s, I decided, well, it's a good time to go. So I went to China. I gave myself half a year. I just finished my studies, which was in law, and I figured, well, I'm just going to stay for half a year, and if I don't like it, I'll go back, and if I like it, I'll stay. So I ended up staying for about 20 years. I liked it. It was the short end of it. And as I started working, I was working in consulting. I, as a hobby, started digging into our family history. So I found out that my ancestors came from Fujian, from southern China. And that really set me on a path where one thing led to another. One question that I got answered about my family history led to five new questions, and it really sucked me in. It brought me closer to my parents, and it gave me a much more feeling of being at ease with myself and with our mixed cultural heritage. And I started helping other people, importantly. Uh, and I always got the same reaction of, wow, I never thought you would be able to find so much. And most people that would come to me would always say, well, it's been so long ago. Probably everything has been lost in terms of the stories, in terms of historical records. I don't speak Chinese, so I wouldn't know where to start. And my experiences was that I found a lot of information. And my thinking was that it was just such a waste of human lives and human experiences if basically people just assume that digging into Chinese family history roots for Chinese diaspora wouldn't be worth even trying because of all those obstacles. So that's how the idea of My China Roots came into being. I wanted to build an online platform that at least allows people to be curious and to start digging into their family history. So today, what I'll start showing you is the online platform. But in essence, the work that we do, and My China Roots has about 16 people. Half of them are in China, the other half are outside. It's all these are the full timers. We also have part timers and freelancers, and they're essentially three pillars to the work that we do. Two of them are the online platform that I'll show you in a bit. So those two are the family tree and the database. And then the third pillar or leg of services that we provide are very customized research and travel services. So it's essentially we have a group of researchers on the ground, historians, cultural anthropologists, sociologists in China, who they're based in Guangzhou, and they essentially do private detective family history research work. They travel to ancestral villages, stay there for 1 or 2 days, collect all the information that is there in terms of the stories from elderly villagers. They take pictures, film footage of all the traces there might be left, like an ancestral hole, like a clan book, a tapu or a tupu, graves, ancestral houses, all of that. And then linked to that are family roots trips, so ranging from one or two people to 30 plus people, groups that we lead, and we have guides that are also researchers that help these groups travel to China. So that's the custom side of our work. Now, in terms of the online platform, the key component to our online platform is our database, I would say, a database of historical records. So we have over the years, we've amassed over 200 million searchable Chinese ancestors. And these Chinese ancestors are to be found in Dapu or Zupu Chinese clan books or family books. But not only that, also census records, yearbooks, business directories, telephone books, clan association member lists, all of those types of records, basically. And specifically for the US side of things, we have over 6 million Chinese American records. And I will show you how to navigate those and how to search for those online in just a few minutes. How it really starts, if you want to use our online platform, is with a family tree. You can also search directly, but probably the easiest way to start is to start building a family tree and then to let our system do the rest, because our system will then use the information that is in your family tree and feed you records that are relevant for the profiles in your family tree. Now, in order to start building a family tree, the key things that you would need are names of relatives and ancestors and dates and places. Basically, gather anything that you can and fill it into the tree that I'll show you in a bit. Now, I think, or I would guess, most people here will be aware that one of the key problems when doing Chinese genealogy research is, and for families that have been outside of China, is that there are different variations and different spellings of names. So there's basically Romanized variations of names, but even when you stick to the Chinese characters of names, there are just different names, like nicknames or paper names or pseudonyms or names that were given to people when they came of age. So literally different names, but then also different spellings of names. The key issue here is just essentially to input anything that you have. The more information, the better. And don't worry about structuring or how it's, what name is inputted where, because our system basically is smart enough to deal with all of that. The same goes for names of places. So if it's your grandfather, and preferably, or at least importantly, the last family member or ancestor that was born in China, if you know the place where he or she was born, that is very helpful. And in terms of the administrative hierarchy, in China, you have province, prefecture, county, town, and village. That's the rough hierarchy of the administrations. So as low, as detailed as possible. So a village or even smaller, like a hamlet, would be great. But very often, like Toisan is I'm sure there are many people in the audience from Toisan, from Taishan. That's county level. That's already better than nothing, but it would be preferred if you can have a town in Taishan. But if Toisan is all you have, put it in. So with that, I'll give you a quick demo. In the meantime, I'd like to maybe also ask Ron or Rudy if there are questions either from the audience or from people on Zoom. Please do either put them in the chat box or ask Ron, and then Ron, I think, can feed those questions to me, because I cannot actually see the room. So if you do put up your hand, if you want to ask a question, please do so via Ron, and then I'll trust that Ron will just interrupt me.
Even before you start, we have a first question.
Yeah,
okay.
So I'm Michael Pond, and Han is a paper name. So I'm just curious, do you also have the fake family trees? Do you also have the fake family trees from the paper names?
Yes. So what we have is basically records. Now, some records are, you could call them fake because they use paper names, and some records use the real name. So it really depends on the family tree. You asked about, do you have fake family trees? The family tree is essentially what you input. So if you build a family tree that is filled with the paper names that you have, then our system will connect those profiles with records that have the same name. So that could be a paper name. It could also be a biological name of somebody that isn't related at all, but just happens to have the same name, because that happens too. So to your problem, more accurately, is if you have a paper son history in your family, and that's of course very common. The one type of source that is very helpful often is, for instance, tombstones, because at the point of death, what happened, or what was not uncommon, is that the Chinese of a tombstone would be actually different from the Romanized, from the English name of the name in letters of a tombstone. And what you often found was that for legal purposes to the outside world, the English name was then the paper name, and the Chinese name, which is what people felt going back to tradition, and that the Americans couldn't read Chinese anyway. So basically, just let's put the real name that attaches them to their home in China would be in Chinese. So tombstones are an example of the types of sources that you could find or run into that would have clues on the biological family in terms of names. There are other types of records too, and basically the whole what you need to do is basically search for everything. So even if you know it's a paper name, keep looking for records, because you might discern patterns of other families that, for instance, your paper grandfather's name sort of appeared on. Because a lot of the times the paper names, so the adoptive families, they didn't come out of the blue. Very often they were already related, or they were from neighboring clans, or very often there were links. So again, the key issue is just to get as many records as you can, and then basically take it from there. If you're lucky, there's a tombstone with different names, but if you're less lucky, it'll just require more sources that you need to compile to find patterns. Does that answer? Does that go some way to answering your question?
Partially.
Partially. Okay. So okay. Any? Well, let me just show you basically the platform, and if your question isn't answered, then please tell me, and then I'll try to do a better job. So. Well, let's actually start because the event is it's about surnames, and one of the key challenges, like I mentioned, is one of spellings. And the one first step that one could take, or at least that one's first challenge that a lot of people face when starting to do family history, is to do with names. So let's just take a surname. Let's just take Ron, Chan, Chan, right? So Chan is not actually Mandarin pinyin for that you could use to convert it into a character. It's that's a different spelling. But let's just say let's just say you don't know any Chinese, and Chan, that spelling is all you have. So you can type Chan into into the search engine. And then one thing that we do is we help you provide a list of the characters that have traditionally been phonetically transformed into CHAN. So in Mandarin, this is Zhang, there's Zheng, there's Chen. And basically, a next step on how to choose which character is yours, we provide different clues. One clue is to do with language, because depending on the dialect that Chinese immigrants spoke, in combination with essentially either the bureaucrat that wrote the name down in letters and the language that they spoke, that combination basically decided to a large extent how it was Romanized, the last name. So for instance, if it was a combination between a Cantonese, a Toisanese immigrant in the US, where the person at Angel Island spoke English, well, that's then a clue. If it would be somebody from Fujian who spoke Hokkien and migrated to the Philippines, where for instance, the official spoke Spanish, then that's a clue too. But then that would have led to another Romanized variation. So based on the dialect and the language in the immigration destination, you can then sort of see here, for instance, dialects and regions. For dialects, Cantonese in the US, you have Chen. The meaning of the last name is another example. So, for instance, in my case, Li is my last name, and nobody in my family growing up knew how to speak Chinese, but they did know that the surname meant plum. So, that's then how I found out that how to write the Li, which is the same Li as Bruce Lee's Lee. So anyway, this is one way to start basically your search. So if you found the character, you can then either go from there and start basically looking through the sources that are relevant for the Chen surname. But as I mentioned earlier, maybe a more logical or comprehensive approach is to just start building your family tree. So what you do is you collect the names and you just essentially start building. And this is pretty straightforward. If people are familiar with Family Search or Ancestry or Genie.com, it's essentially the same. The difference is that this software is completely built by us with the Chinese diaspora in mind. So for instance, if you have if you have certain names, you can choose whether it's a paper name or a generation name, and this actually goes to the question of, sorry, was your name Michael Kwan? Anyway, the question that was asked earlier. You can categorize, you can label the names that you input. So if you know it's a paper name, you can label it as such so that you then know also how to basically assess the records that will be fed to you later. So all of this is really designed for people with Chinese heritage that grew up outside of China. You can fill in all the basic information, so Chinese name, gender, birth, basically biographical information, everything. And what you then get is this type of profile where you have a name in Romanized form in Chinese characters, and you have biographical information. You can see the relatives of this individual. You can add pictures. Each of these pictures you can tag. You can share it with other relatives of yours by basically giving them access rights, and then you can communicate with relatives about who is the second on the left, and then they can tag that person too. Same with tagging, you can tag by place and by time. So this is how you can work together with family members building your family tree. Now, where it gets really interesting, at least in my view, is with what we call the hint system. It's a record finder tool. So let's say you've filled in your family tree. What you see at some profiles is these little icons on the top right. So for instance, if I click on a tree member profile, I can then see, okay, there are 5 matches of records from our database that our system has singled out based on the information that I inputted in the tree. So let's say I inputted this information, Bok Sui Chin. So Chin is the last name. And through the surname database that I started off showing, I know that this Chin last name is this character, so Mandarin Chen. And I know roughly that he was born in the 1880s. So that's very often the type of information that people have. Based on that information, our system then has singled out these records. So, for instance, you have Chinese Exclusion Act case files from Philadelphia, from Boston, from New York. So here it says this record actually has relatives that actually are shown on that record. And here it actually also says high quality. High quality means basically that there's a lot of information to be found in that record. So let's just click on it. What you can do now is you can compare the data that is in the information that is in that record with the information that is in the tree, in your tree. Because not always, it could just be the person with the same name, but in order to cross-verify whether it's indeed the same person, the same individual as your ancestor, you can basically check that. Now, what is really so let's assume then that you want to take a closer look. What makes this special is that I already saw that from the index table just now, is that there is also a Chinese name of Bok Sui in this case. So in this case, you can see there's a case file. It's an affidavit that essentially. Yeah, so the reason for this particular affidavit is because this person, Bok Sui, wants to get his son over to the US. And of course, to get that done, he had to show that he was a US citizen and that he was born in the US. So that's basically the type of record. This is beautiful because you actually have pictures of Chin Bok Sui. One thing that I think is worth mentioning, and that's to do with the translation. Ron was referring earlier to a lot of people getting stuck on how to know what Chinese characters mean when it's on a document. So if you see here top right, it says extract text. What I do now is I select the Chinese characters, and what you can see, so immediately, basically the characters are extracted, and we use optical character recognition to immediately tell you, okay, this is Mandarin, but the name is Chen Bai Rui. Chen Bai Rui. So now you know not only do you have the Chinese characters, but you actually know what his name was in Chinese. So with this information, actually, you can now, it opens the door to basically dozens or hundreds even of records with the Chinese characters too. So here you can see that our system already has taken all of that into account. And now you can actually go from the record, the case file, and just having the English name to all the records in Chinese that carry his Chinese name. And actually, from the record that we just saw, what else can we see? Well, we know that his birthplace was in San Francisco and his birth date. So we don't actually know the ancestral place in China yet. So I think because if you only have a Chinese name, then there will be many records that basically will have the Chinese name. It's good to also have the Chinese name in combination with the ancestral place in China. So let's just take a look. Let's just look a bit more and see if any of the other records basically can tell us about the ancestral place in China. So we were looking at this person. So there's the Boston. So let's click on another record. And again, what you're looking at now is the new data in that record, and you're comparing it with your tree. Now here, so this is wonderful because it actually, in the new record, it mentions the ancestral place, Nor One village in Sunning. So Sunning is actually a historical name for Toisan, Taishan. So Xinning is the Mandarin, but Sunning is the Toisanese way of pronouncing it. Nor One village. So what you actually can do now is you can select this, you can copy, paste it, and you can go to our village database. And you can paste it. I just pasted Nor One in our village database, and boom, immediately it sees that the contemporary name and the contemporary place is now one village. So it basically has it gives you the full administrative hierarchy. So Guangdong Province, Jiangmen Prefecture. Today it's in Enping, which used to actually be part of Toisan used to be bigger than it is now. So Enping used to be part of Toisan. So yeah, essentially here now you have the ancestral place, and now you can go back to the what we had earlier, the search results for the Chinese name of Boksui. So I think it was in this one, yeah, by Ray with the Chinese name. So you can see these are 16 most Zupu with the Chinese name of your ancestor. Now that you know that he was born in Guangdong, you can filter the ancestral places here, and then essentially make your way to the through the Zupu. Now in this, so here you can see the characters are to be found here by Ray. Now this particular case, I can see, and this, yeah, you need to basically know how to read it, but this is not actually a family tree part of a Zupu. It's not a generation poem exactly, but it's similar to a generation poem. It's each of these characters are names, but the relevance of these names is that they decide where on the ancestral tablet, basically, which tablet is being placed where. So in this particular case, this is not a family tree, but what you have, essentially what the platform does is we give you tools to see if the name that appears in a Zupu belongs to your ancestor or not. So going back now to the other records, you can yeah, you can review all the other records from up close. But let's maybe go to another example. So let's just take this one. So this is another person, Albert Hanying Wang, that has 9 records. So there's a passenger list in San Francisco, but here, a tombstone. So as I mentioned, a tombstone is typically if you find a tombstone, that is one of the key things that you want to take a look at. Especially in this case, you can see there's a picture. So that, of course, helps verifying whether this person, this Albert Wong, was indeed your relative. And here you can see the information that is on the tombstone, so the ancestral place. You can click it, and then basically you can see a map of where this person was born. And again, you have the, now that you have the Chinese characters, you can basically click on it and then filter down the Zupu options and actually see the name inside the Zupu. So basically here, within a minute, I found the name in the Zupu, Zhan Li. And what you can see here, as I hover my mouse over each character, at the bottom, you see basically auto translation and auto transliteration tools. So even if you don't speak Chinese, you can basically, essentially, you can read everything on our platform because of these tools. And with this information, you can further build out your tree. And the more you build your tree, basically, the more you get connected to other records that are in our database. So not only the Chinese records are interesting, but I just saw like these passenger lists often contain a lot of great information too. So for instance, here you have a lot of information too about Han Wang. And if you look at it more closely, here, number 70 is Han Wang Ying, male, ancestral place, Sun Ning, date of birth, height, he had a scar under his chin. So this type of information is obviously very valuable if you want to get a better picture of who let's say your great grandfather was. So another, and yeah, again, you can basically make your way through all the records that have been hinted and compare them all and look at them all up close. I want to go back to the language issue that Ron mentioned a few times, that people don't, very often they have Chinese records, but they don't know what it says or what to do with it. If you go to this page, image to text, what we allow you to do is you can just upload that particular record. So we can just upload a record. So let's just say here I have a record that is in Chinese. And boom, straight away. So this is the record that I've just uploaded. This is the OCR result. And here I have a button that shows the translation. And here, within 30 seconds, basically, I know what this record says. And this is not, so the English is not perfect by any means, but you can definitely see the type of information that is here. So this is clan related information, and this is about early ancestors and the background of the lineages where they came from before they settled in the village that this person, that the Zupu is from. So that's just one example of how you can find out what Chinese records say. What you can also do is, for instance, if you have a family tree and you essentially, let's just say you have a, you can upload photos. So for instance, if you have a person and you have a picture of their tombstone, what you can do too is extract the text. You press this button and you highlight this, and immediately you have the translation. So this is basically a poetic line that is written on the tombstone. So yeah, I think this tool, especially for that point, basically you don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to do anything. All you need is your mobile phone. You take a picture, you upload it here, and you'll know what the record says within a minute. So, okay, I think that's the key. Yeah, I mean, let me open it for questions first because I can show a couple of other features, but I think so far what I've showed so far. Are there any
You have a
questions?
question on the floor?
Sorry?
I had a question for you. First of all, your website is extremely impressive. Thank you for demonstrating. And the first question I have is, how many Japus do you have in your database? And do any of those correlate or overlap with the Japus in Family Search?
So actually, we have a lot of contact with Family Search, and we've already done quite a few exchanges because Family Search has a lot of Japus that we don't have, but the opposite is true too. Because our target audience is really the Chinese diaspora, that means historically that we and the Chinese diaspora, at least those that left before 78, before the opening of China, the overwhelming majority came from the south. The overwhelming majority of Chinese diaspora born and raised outside China came from Fujian and Guangdong. So that's where our Zhupu, I guess, density is highest in terms of the Zhupus that we have. So in total, so in the database now that are searchable, so about 17,000. We have actually over 20,000, and we're about to double that figure in the next month. So that's the short answer. Today we have about 20,000, but online now is 17,000. So because we of course have a continuous feed of putting more records online, and we look forward to work more with Family Search to continue our Zupu exchange and sharing practices.
What is your subscription fee to your website?
Sorry, what is the subscription
Fee.
feed?
How much does it cost to?
Okay, sure. So here you can see the plan. So how much it costs is well, the short answer is $90 per year, and right now, or it's $15 a month. Right now, we have a very steep discount for the period that is there at the moment. So right now, it's actually only $4 per month. So it's a lot cheaper now, and that will last until after Christmas time probably. So yeah, actually, an important other point to make is that we work a lot with libraries. So basically, we have today libraries that have subscribed to our database include the San Francisco Public Library, but also the Los Angeles Public Library, Boston Public Library, Stanford, Berkeley University libraries. So these are all libraries that have, and actually the Family Search has also subscribed to our database. So my point here is that if you are attached to any of these libraries, or if you have a San Francisco library card, or you go into Family Search, you can actually access our database for free. The only difference between doing that and having your own account is the family tree. So if you go to Family Search and access our database, you don't have the family tree building tool at your disposal. And that's what you do when you have a personal subscription of, well, in this case, $4 a month.
I guess one final question I had, since there was a huge migration from Fujian to Taiwan about a couple hundred years ago, so are you finding that you have not only records in Cantonese, but also in Mandarin then for names and that sort of thing?
Yes. So, I mean, that's the short answer. So basically, we have quite a few thousand of Fujianese zopus that include family histories that basically occurred in Fujian, and then, as you say, I mean, there were several migration waves from southern Fujian to Taiwan course, the first one was Zheng Chenggong Koxinga in the 1660s, and then later the second one, of course, was after the when the People's Republic was founded in 1949. The bigger Fujian wave was the first one in the 17th century. So we actually have, I just mentioned we're about to double our Zupu count. Part of that is actually a large Taiwanese Zupu batch. And in a sense, because you mentioned also different characters, and some characters are indeed specific to Hokkien or Cantonese, but basically our system deals with all of that. So whether it's traditional or simplified Chinese in terms of your input or in terms of what is being written and then the OCR that helps you translate it, our system deals with all of it.
One more question.
Yep.
Do you have the Japanese from the Quan Library and the Sito Library from Guangzhou? Do you have
Yes, the Guan we do. The C2, actually have to check.
I think you have just volumes of information.
Yeah, exactly. So the Quan or Guan, yes, we definitely do. And the C2, I believe we do too. So the C2 live, the ones that we have, yeah. So these are all Guangdong Sipo. Yeah, that is the Kaiping, right? So you see, yeah. So yes.
Thank you.
So you can click on any of these Zupu and just basically search for a character. Let's just take a very common character, and then basically it shows you all the pages that have that character. Some will be names, and some will be See.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For the C2, is that the same as Sito and Zulu?
Yes.
Yeah.
By the way, if there's any questions on Zoom, open up your chat and then just type in your question. One moment, we have one more.
Hi, Huihan. This is probably an odd question. So my father-in-law is a Chun from Anhui, and he migrated to Taiwan after the Chinese Revolution in 1949. But when my husband went back to the village, he could not find the Zupu. It sounded like many of those records could have been burned, but regards. I just wondered if by chance there was any Zupus, for example, Chuns from the Anhui village, Anhui province, that might have been stayed perhaps Shanghai Library or other places.
Yes. So basically, like you said, of course, there was the Cultural Revolution, and a lot of it has been destroyed during the Cultural Revolution. Anhui, being more or less central China, was more destructive. Basically, the closer you were to Beijing, the more destructive the Cultural Revolution was, and the more records have been lost, essentially. So I just typed in Anhui in our own database. So we have 660 Zupu for Anhui. And what did you say the last name was?
Also
Chen.
Yeah.
Chen. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So basically, we have 14 Chen clan Zupus for Anhui. So basically, then the next step would be for me to ask you basically what is the do you have a name of, I think you mentioned your husband, or it's just basically somebody that was preferably somebody that was still born there, and then I could just type in a search and just search it here, and then all these books will be automatically searched, and you'll know if we have it. Now your question if whether other institutions might have it, yes, maybe the Shanghai Library. So the Shanghai Library being in Shanghai and central coastal China is a bit stronger in that region. So Anhui, Zhejiang, Jiangsu, also Shandong. So it could. But for the Shanghai library, yeah, you would need to basically look at the source level, and with that I mean look for the surname and then Anhui, and then you'll have to basically scan a lot of the books by page, because I don't believe the Shanghai library has offers the ability to actually input a name and then search within a book for that name. Whereas we do. But yeah, if the Zupu isn't on our database already, I would say Family Search or Shanghai Library would be your next best bet. In all honesty, we also have had quite a few instances, and this is where our custom research comes into play, where we found Zupus that were outside China. So, for instance, we found Zupus in Singapore for people that were from southern Fujian. And that's basically because one of the clan members 100 years ago or 50 years ago basically brought an edition over to Singapore, even though our client was from Australia. So the point here is that the Zupu situation is quite scattered across the globe, and there's not just one place. Like, if you know he was from Anhui, then your Zupu will be there. It's just different options available. And yeah, just like I mentioned, Shanghai Library, Family Search, and of course our database would be the first ones to look into. And otherwise, yeah, a follow-up step would be, okay, what are other migration paths that have taken place exiting that place in Anhui, and then looking, okay, where could the Zupu be, essentially. I hope I didn't. I answered. If I didn't, for any questions, if I don't answer your question adequately, please just let me know. Thank you all for joining today. Thank you, Ron, for inviting me together with the ACGG. And yeah, again, if there are any other questions, please do let me know. Everybody can also email me at the bottom here is my email address, huihanlee@mychinaroots.com.
We do have questions in the room, please.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, sure.
Your database is amazing. I was just wondering, is the database for My China Roots, is there a way it would be useful for Chinese adoptees?
Adoptees. Okay, you're asking about adoptees, right? Because the line wasn't great.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So the database of historical records, and I'm just going to be straightforward, is not great for adoptees. And the reason being is that most of the adoptions have been taking place in the last 30 years, starting in the early 90s. And our database is especially good for 70 years and older back in history. So it's for families that have migrated in their entirety, usually. So for adoptees, we do actually have a section of our researchers that specifically do adoptee research. We're also, for instance, our work is highlighted on a Netflix documentary called Found that actually follows our team helping 3 adopted Chinese American girls find their biological parents in China. So that's basically the area of custom research. And we basically then work with DNA, and we have a standardized approach where we would ask for the raw data from 23andMe or Ancestry DNA. We then basically cross-verify that data with the Chinese databases. In addition to that, we work on social media platforms to put out ads, search ads, basically. And our custom researchers, they basically go out to orphanages, social welfare institutions, and basically any other field research that can be undertaken. But yeah, that's not what the database would be best used for.
Yeah, we have 5 more minutes, but we have another question from the chat. One moment, please.
Yeah.
I recently learned my father, okay, I'm sorry. It's a Chinese name, was found, but it is in tattered state. My cousin said they are considering reconstructing it. Is this an area my China roots may be of assistance?
Sorry, the situation is that could you
So the
repeat the
question I
situation?
believe is that the Jiapu has been damaged, and can you do any type of restoration?
Okay. So yeah, yes, but what is it? Is it a physical restoration, or is it the content is gone and you want to do basically research on the family tree?
That's my question. It's Liu Jiapu, and I just learned recently, I don't know what state it is, but I'm going to WeChat my cousin to take some pictures to see exactly what state it is in. And then can I upload it and show you later on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So the short answer is that we can help. But yeah, of course, I'd like to know a bit more details on what the state is. But yes, I would say the next step would be to email me and to basically send some pictures of the tattered state that the Zupu is in, and then we can just discuss what the next steps would be. But yeah, we can help with reconstructing Zupu.
Thank you very much.
We have one more.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have any other questions? We have time for one more question.
Hi, thank you so much for all this wealth of information. And I, like many others, are so impressed with the database. What security protective measures do you have for the confidentiality of all the records?
That's a great question. So let me go back to basically showing you live how that works. So because, well, first of all, we take security extremely seriously. So whatever you upload into your family tree, you basically decide who has access to that. So what that means is if you look at the screen, so the family tree has their settings. So for privacy settings, you can set your tree, the information that you've uploaded, to be public, which means it can be found by other people, or you can set it private, which means nobody else can see it but you. And you, of course, have your own username and password. So that basically, if you set it on private, it's really just you that will have access to it. In terms of sharing, you can also adjust the settings. So you can, for instance, email anybody that you would like to provide access. And what you could then do is you can see, if you can see the screen, so you can set the administrative rights of that person. So maybe you have an aunt that really knows a lot about family history, and you would like her to add things to your tree. What you would do then is you would make that aunt an editor. Maybe you have a nephew and you want to share the family history with him, but you don't really trust him to act responsibly in uploading new data. Then you just basically make him a viewer. So that's with sharing. With every basically data, you are in control over who else gets to see it. In terms of the historical records, so one of the key things I mentioned this earlier, our records are all older than 70, 80, or actually more years, and that is also linked to privacy. So we don't have, or at least we don't publicize information that is likely to be of living people. So we do actually have some records, for instance, burial records. When somebody was being buried, very often then the spouse or a child would actually sign the registration papers. So we have a lot of those types of records, but we don't actually make that publicly available, the information of people that are probably still alive. So yeah, so that's all then not searchable.
Okay, thank you. And I'm certain you have some protective wall against hackers into the whole site.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, exactly. So against hackers, we have very secure data protocols in place. And also, I think maybe or important to mention because of geopolitics, and I think a lot of people are justifiably concerned about the Chinese government, especially the Communist Party. Um, our servers are outside China. So basically, there's also no link there between essentially the Communist Party and data that we have.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Yue. I'd like to thank you for your time and your
Thank you, Ron, and thanks to everyone for the patience of listening to me. But yes, thank you very much.